Hey everyone, in this video we have created our classifications for our nav bar that we can finally go into them and view some of the cars that we have associated with them. So when we go into these, you'll notice on the bottom left for the PHP Motors vehicles, you'll notice that the action is classification as well. It has an and sign for classification name, which equals classic. So it'll pass the two different variables into the controller to get us to the page that we want to go. So you'll notice once we go to the classic, it'll bring up the classic vehicles that we currently have. Go to the sports, it'll show us our sports cars, SUVs, trucks, and our used. And so let's go into one of these. You'll notice when we hover over either the picture or the name itself, it's all a link. So you can click to view the details of the specific vehicles. But before we go into there, if you look on the bottom left-hand side again, we're doing the same thing that we were doing for the classifications to bring up these different car selections. You'll notice that it's going through the PHP Motors, or vehicles. And for this one, our action is going to be our vehicle detail. And we're going to have the variable of the inventory ID, and it'll show that it equals 3. So we're going to be passing the specific inventory ID number associated with that specific vehicle, so the page knows exactly where we would like to go into. So if we go ahead and click one of them, it'll pop into our details of that specific vehicle. And in our big screen mode, we'll have our name and our picture on the left-hand side, and then we'll have our details associated on the right-hand side of our page here. And so one thing that you'll notice as well is when we go into inspect it, we've made everything so it is responsive. So just like we like to do with any front-end design, we want to make our web pages responsive. And when it gets to a certain point, it'll make it so our page goes into a on top of one another format. So now you'll notice that we have the vehicle's name, the picture, and then the details right under it instead of having it side by side in our small view. And so this is what we've done in order to make our web page responsive. And we can also check that with this toggle device tool here. And this will actually bring in to view like your different types of styles of devices. So we're doing an iPhone 6 for this one right here. So you'll notice that it's still one on top of another style. So you got the name of the vehicle, the picture, and then all the details under it. And if we go to a different setting, so you want to go to iPad, it'll bring up again that view of having it side by side. And so one thing that we kind of want to check real fast too is just to make sure we're checking all right for our details for our HTML. So it looks like we're doing okay on that one. And then we want to verify our CSS that we've created in order to do that within our page. So it looks like we're doing okay on that one. So one thing that I've done within this is I've created a div that was associated with the picture and the name. And then I put another div that was over top of the price, the details, the color, and the number in stock. And then had them flex, so that way anytime we're in the big screen, it'll have them side by side. And then once we go into the small screen, it'll be just the one on top of another. So one thing that I kind of wanted to show you real quick too, you'll notice we can go into the fire truck, same thing, SUVs, we can go into the mystery machine. And again, it's all associated with that inventory ID, which this one specifically equals the 7. So that's what we're doing to pass in that information to get us to the right pages that we want to go. And so if we look at our text here, so anytime that we are looking into these, you'll notice that it has the action of vehicle detail. So that's basically passing into our vehicle controller that vehicle detail case statement that we have programmed in there. And then along with that, it's going to pass in that inventory ID, which is equal to 6. So we'll go in and show you for a minute here. So within our vehicles controller, anytime that we click one of the associated pictures, the case statement is that vehicle detail. So it'll grab that vehicle detail and start within this case here. Once it gets that, it also has that inventory ID, which equals a number, and it'll basically grab that as well. We'll filter the input, validate it as an integer, and then put it into the inventory ID variable, because we're going to use that here as well. So one thing that I've done is I've got this get inventory item info, which it takes that variable that we've passed in, that number, and then it goes through, pushes it into this function, and then it brings it back within this inventory info. And the reason why we've done this is you'll notice if we go into, like, say, the Batmobile, you'll notice it at the top in the title here, Batmobile Custom. And so in our vehicle detail, you'll come up to the title, and we've done a PHP tag, and we've inserted this inventory info, and we've grabbed it because it's taking basically everything, all the details of the vehicles, and we're pulling the inventory make and the inventory model out of those arrays. And so if those exist, it'll echo the inventory info make and the inventory info model, which you'll see at the very top of the screen here. And that's a function that we've reused before. And so you'll notice, let's see, I believe it's in my vehicles model. Let's see, okay, so right here. So this is what it does, is so it basically takes that inventory ID that we passed through, and then it goes through this function, it grabs our SQL and goes through our database, because we're going to be in the PHP Motors database, and it's going to select the inventory, and then where the inventory ID is equal to ID, it's basically going to go through and grab everything that we need, and we're going to fetch all the details and pass it back into the inventory info. And that's how we were able to display on top for the title in order what vehicle we're currently viewing. And you can also notice that in the Ford Model T, it'll again show exactly what it's supposed to be for that specific vehicle. Okay, so going back to the controller, as it goes through, so we've done that, we've passed it through to make it so it's visible for our title there. And then it'll go through, and we've created a new one, get inventory info, and we're passing in that same variable, the inventory ID, and then we're going to make it into the vehicle info variable itself here. And what we've done with that, let's see, I believe it's on my model at the bottom. Yep, so kind of the same thing. So basically passes in that inventory ID, goes to the SQL, gets all the inventory, everything that we need, and then it comes back and does the vehicle info. We'll return that again. So then it'll come back into our controller with that variable, and then we're going to see, okay, does that variable exist? Did it function correctly? If not, it'll pass back an error message, but if it works, let's go ahead and build the detail. So if it works, we did a function build vehicle info display, and we're passing in the variable that we created through our function. So it passes all the details that we're going to need within that. And so once that's completed going through the function, it's going to pass it into our vehicle info display labeled right here. And so what we've done, so within our functions, we're building some of the HTML through that function and the information that we need. And so it'll go into here, it'll pass in our vehicle info, and then again I've created the divs in order to make it so we have the picture side by side, and then in the small view it'll go back to the one on top of another style, the column style. And then so we've built the div, and then let's see, actually I want to go back to the conversion. So what I've done here, when we're pulling from the database, all it has is the numbers with no commas, with no money symbol, anything. So it just had the numbers. And so what we've done with this is converted it into a price using this number format. And so there's also one, I believe it was something to do with money, but it doesn't work in Windows. So I've decided to go with the number format style. And so what we're done is we're creating a variable of a price conversion, and then we're going to do this number format, and this number format, the default, makes it so it has the comma within the correct locations. And so I've taken the vehicle info that it passes through and it creates it into the vehicle's info, so now it's plural, and then we'll find that price. And so now, doing that, this variable has been converted into this specific price for this, this vehicle specifically. And so then it goes through, I've created the H1 within my function right here, so it displays as the Model T. And we've grabbed the vehicle's info, the make and the model, and it'll display it above the picture. And then we got the picture, which again we'll use the vehicle's info. And what we're going to do is pull the image instead of the image thumbnail this time. And then for the alt, so like if the picture is broken or anything, we just want to make sure we have something that displays. And it's going to have the inventory make and model on our phpmotors.com. So it'll go through and pass that. And then we'll go through, and I've created another div for all of the details of the vehicle. So once it's in the large screen, we can display it side by side. And so here we've done the price, and then I've done a span. So I've done an H2 and then a span right next to it. So it'll have one under the other, and then I wanted it to be colored a specific style and way. So this is how I've done mine. And then we'll pass in that price conversion variable that we did. And in order to get the $sign, I have just placed that within here as a string. So it just displays that money sign or that $sign in front of our price. And then I've created the HR, so the line that goes under. And then for our vehicle's info, so we've done, again, the inventory make, inventory model, and then it'll display their details here. So we go into our vehicle's info variable or our array that we have, and this time we'll pull the inventory description, which will be displayed in a paragraph. And then we've done the color, which again is basically the same thing, the vehicle's info, and we're doing the array of the inventory color, so we're pulling that out. Number in stock, same deal, and then it'll basically pass it back to the div here. Let's see, okay, so coming back to the controller. All right, so that's all been done. So this basically encompasses our HTML display. So this variable here holds everything that we need in order to display our web pages properly. And then it'll go through and it'll include our view, our vehicle detail, and then break. And so it'll go back to our vehicle detail. And then here we've done a PHP tag, and if that exists, again we're testing to make sure everything exists. And so that vehicle inbuilt display that we have created the HTML through our functions file, if that exists, what we're going to do is we're going to echo it. And so notice once that's echoed, it'll have it displayed here. And we can go into any one of these that we want, monster truck, Crown Victorian. One of the best ones of the page is the mechanical special. I loved how it has the color rust. And yeah, so basically this is how everything is created and done within our websites here. So again, all we're doing is the action of the vehicle detail, so it'll pass it through the correct controller. And then we also, using that and sign, we can pass the inventory ID, which again, we're doing that and making sure that it collects the specific ID for that vehicle. And see, this one equals 15. So again, it'll pull up the dog cart info. And that's pretty much it for today's video, guys. Let me know if you have any questions or need any help.